So hello, my name is David Hahn. So this is my Do Something Report It for BBE 2201. This is a waste audit of my apartment. I decided to tackle this a lot like the kilowatt idea. To me, the kilowatt idea was about figuring out energy that was coming into and not being used, and I wanted to instead do the opposite. I was really intrigued by the recent HERC assignment and the assignment about trash to energy, waste energy. And so I wanted to figure out how much waste I was putting out that could be otherwise reapportioned and doesn't have to necessarily go straight to the incinerator. So like recyclables and stuff like that. So I was looking for three things in particular. Wasted food, wasted recyclable bowls, and compost. Something I hadn't thought about until I actually started doing this was the amount of waste that I generate because of animals. I have two animals, and they generate about 10 to 15 pounds of litter per week. I use pine litter, so it's not a clay litter. It could be composted, and we'll talk about that a little bit towards the end. So here's my trash. Nothing to really look at. I laid down some newspaper and decided to sort through it to see exactly what it is that I was sending to HERC. Since I live just a little south of downtown, more than likely my trash ends up at HERC. And so let's see what it is that I am sending. So here's all of it sorted. A couple of gloves later, and here we go. I was actually surprised at a lot of this. First of all, you'll notice on the bottom right-hand corner is all of the actual trash that I have that can't be sorted into any other pile other than garbage. And what's remaining in the bag are coffee filters. So all in all, what you see in the bottom right, there's some coffee in there, but it's not much. Most of the trash that can't be otherwise reapportioned anywhere else for me is in coffee filters. Up in the top right-hand corner is the wasted food that I have, and in the upper left corner was the most surprising part. Is the recyclable material that was in my trash that could otherwise be recycled, including those two cans, which I was pretty surprised at. So I sorted it out into these three areas: trash, recyclables that ended up in the trash, and waste. So let's first talk about the trash. So the trash was anything that I couldn't otherwise recycle. I consulted the City of Minneapolis' website on things that you can recycle, and we'll talk about that here towards the end. Most of the trash that I generated was coffee filters. It's not necessarily, I didn't put it down here, but a lot of it was coffee filters, and those coffee filters can't be recycled. They can be composted. Well, like I said, we'll talk about that later. But otherwise, it was things like waxed coffee bean bags, styrofoam, napkins, and other food-soaked items which you can't recycle. Also, you'll see my foot in there. Other recyclables actually surprised me quite a bit. As you can see, there's a couple of cans in there, and a lot of junk mail that I didn't pay any attention to and just threw straight in the trash. A lot of junk mail, a lot of paper bags from fast food in there as well. And I was pretty surprised to find those cans. I'm pretty vigilant about recycling all the aluminum that comes through my apartment, so yeah, it struck me to see that. Also, it struck me that there was so much paper that was able to be recycled in there. You can recycle a lot of what you saw there, and it's changed a little bit over the last 5 years. So later on, we'll take a little bit of a look at what you can and can't recycle. Here's the waste food. It's not very appealing to. I'll move off of that. The waste food was the pretty gross part. For me, over the past week, it would seem that I wasted just about half of a box of cooked pasta, as well as two bagels that I got as part of half a dozen. While it may not seem like a lot, this over time would stack up to quite a bit. Say half a pound of pasta wasted would amount to about 26 pounds per year of pasta wasted, which is over 30 bucks worth of pasta. So that's quite a bit of savings. Same with the bagels. If you average two per week wasted, that's 104 bagels per year, which adds up to nearly $100 worth of bagels wasted per year. So it's quite a bit. And I was really concerned with this because it would tell me the most about my habits. So here I wanted to compare the trash bag before, the picture on the left, was part of the second slide, I believe, second or third slide. And the picture on the right is that same bag with only trash in it. And while it may not look like a big difference, weight-wise, it was quite a big difference. Those recyclables weighed quite a bit. And so that's what my trash would look like without everything else that could be taken care of and sorted out already taken care of. So I had to estimate the weights. I was going to use a scale for this. Unfortunately, my scale broke last week. So I estimated the weights to be trash about 1.5 pounds, and I didn't include coffee filters in that. Recyclables at about 4 pounds. That was quite a bit of paper, actually, and it really surprised me. And waste food was about 3 pounds. Again, it was quite a bit of cooked pasta and a couple of bagels, and that added up. So just taking a look at my overall total, the waste, my actual trash, just the trash alone, at 1.5 pounds, would have been about 18% of what I was sending to the landfill, which is quite a low percentage. Here are some other percentages. The recyclables that should have been routed to a recycling facility accounted for 47% of my overall trash, and the waste food accounted for about 35% of my overall trash. These numbers are pretty startling. Clearly, I need to concentrate on properly sorting recyclables and overcoming the laziness of just throwing away junk mail. Also, I need to concentrate on fully using food and maybe not cooking as much as I think I may need to. You don't need to cook as much for one. So, what can you recycle? These are some images from the City of Minneapolis recycling website. They're all things that we've probably already known that we can recycle. Something that you may not have thought about recycling is what you see on the right, which is junk mail, which is a big problem of mine. And the question becomes, what can't you recycle? So I spoke with somebody at the solid waste and recycling office downtown, and they told me that you cannot throw away phone books. You have to properly dispose of phone books. Um, Food and grease-soaked items you cannot recycle because they're food and grease-soaked. Tyvek envelopes is a big thing. Tyvek is the cloth-like material that envelopes are sometimes made out of. You might notice if you tear it, some strings will hang from it or such. That's Tyvek, and you can't recycle that. Egg cartons and plastic bags are also two things you cannot recycle. And we'll talk about why here in just a second. So plastics, especially bags. We might initially want to recycle all the plastics that we get, including plastic bags, but it's important that we check whether or not we can. And on this website for Minneapolis, and I'm sure for other cities it's listed as well, you can check to see if you can recycle what you have there. But plastic bags actually really surprised me. Plastic bags cannot be recycled because they can get caught on the machines. So previously, I used to sort my recycling into plastic bags before I knew this, and from now on, I'll be sorting them into paper bags. Recycling glass, again, we might initially think that we should just go ahead and recycle all the glass that we get because all glass is the same, SiO2. But it's not. The person at the recycling office said that if you cannot donate it to a food shelf, do not recycle it. So those broken light bulbs you might have, vases, windows, even broken drinking glasses, you cannot recycle those. Those need to be thrown away. Paper. A lot of us recycle paper. I apparently don't. So some paper that we can't recycle are egg cartons because once you pulp those egg cartons, the fibers become too small to use for anything else other than egg cartons. So a lot of co-ops, especially say the Wedge and the Seward Co-op, will accept egg cartons and sometimes for credit. And you can trade in egg cartons or bring in your own to put eggs in. Napkins and tissues, same reason. They can't recycle napkins and tissues because once you pulp those down, the fibers are too small to make into any other paper products. Food-soaked items and pizza boxes, again, previously noted, because they have grease and such on them, and that doesn't get sorted out during the pulping process. So I wanted to take what I learned about my trash usage or not usage, or overusage, really, and figure out my greenhouse gas impact. Instead of looking at it on a weekly basis, I wanted to look at it on a per year basis. And so I averaged out 4 pounds of recyclables per week, comes out to 208 pounds per year, and 3 pounds of waste food comes out to 156 pounds per year. So I used a worksheet that was actually designed for use in an office to look at office recycling processes. But if I average all of my failed recycling to be paper material, I came up with 134 pounds of CO2 equivalency for those recyclables. So that's quite a bit. The waste food is a little more difficult because we need to keep in mind that that waste food is transported several times and produced. So using another calculator here, I found that overall for every half of a box of pasta that I waste, it's about a half of a kilogram of CO2e. So I came up with about 78 kilograms of CO2e just on wasted wheat grains alone. And, keep in mind that I only did this for the week that I did this project. There may be times where that's more or less than that. So all in all, my lack of recycling and food usage amounted to nearly 210 kilograms of CO2e per year. So I wanted to mention composting because that was part of my objectives. Since I live in an apartment, I can't compost because I live on the second floor, so I can't compost. I could probably use a worm bin, but I don't know enough about those yet. If I was able to compost, then I could further reduce my trash even a lot more. I could say compost all of the coffee filters that I use because used up coffee grounds have a nitrogen to carbon ratio of 20 to 1, and that makes them really good for using in the garden. And which, all in all, if I did this, I could reduce my waste by 250 pounds more per year. Also, composting in animals. If I could compost, then I could compost rabbit litter. Rabbit litter is safe to compost because it doesn't contain any E. coli. Cats are carnivores, dogs are carnivores, so you can't compost their waste as easily. You can bury it a little deeper, but the concern is that E. coli will get out and somehow be in the garden, and you don't want that. Meanwhile, with herbivores like rabbits, they eat hay and they eat pellets, so you don't get those same concerns with E. coli. And again, just looking at the amount of rabbit litter that I just throw away, I could save anywhere between 260 and 520 pounds of that per year. So overall, what did I come to? I learned a lot about my waste habits. I learned that I generate about 6 pounds of real trash per week, that I generate about 3 pounds of waste food per week, at least 5 pounds of recycling. I didn't count any of the recyclables that I properly recycled, just the ones that ended up in the trash. I generate about 10 pounds of animal litters per week, for a total of about 25 pounds of waste per week. If I could compost, I could turn 23 pounds of that back out and only waste about 2 pounds per week. Without composting, I can do about 18 pounds per week not sent to a landfill. There's going to be some waste. That's something that we have to keep in mind. We can't forget that there's just some waste that you can't do anything about, like pizza boxes and stuff like that, because we're college students, pizza's a big thing. But we can do the best on what we actually have and what we can control. So that's what I wanted to take a look at this, and this actually taught me a lot about my waste habits and my habits on recycling, and I can make some big changes. I can, say, place a paper bag for paper recycling near the door. That might be a convenient spot to put junk mail in. That way I actually recycle it and don't just throw it away in the trash. Same with food. I can cut back on how much food I make. More than not, I'm cooking for one, so I don't need to use an entire box of pasta and then throw away the other half. Something that would be interesting is to compare these numbers to how much food I end up throwing away out of my refrigerator. That can change on a weekly basis, so that's the reason I didn't include it. But this taught me a lot about my habits and what I can change. So, thank you very much.